How many people are familiar with checking in like that on a daily basis? Oh, yay! It leans a little bit into the founding story where, yeah, I'll get there, where checking in was life-changing for us. But yeah, I'm the co-founder of CoLiberate. We're a social enterprise. We're based actually here at 257, and we're working towards a world where everyone has a trusted someone in their life that they can go to in a time of need, for emotional support, for any sort of support, and in turn also helping people with that help-seeking behaviour to ask for what they need, ask for the support they need, and know the right person to go to get that. Our main way of doing that at the moment is through our mental health first response skills training course. It's equipping everyday people with the skills, just like you and me, to have a supportive conversation with someone that we're worried about, how to recognise signs and signals of distress, and then put on that bravery cap and actually ask how someone is doing. It gives you the steps, conversational steps to follow to make sure that that person is okay, and connecting them to the right supports, and then the ability to debrief with someone afterwards, which is awesome. And we also run a mental health gym right here. Actually, you're sitting in it right now. You guys are actually sitting on a lot of the props, which are sitting in the back of those bleachers. Yeah, it's awesome being in this space because we get to pop it up and put it away, so the space can be used for other things. But what happens is a few times a week we run weekly sessions that are centering on connection, expression, relaxation and reflection. These curtains close, all of these get pushed away. We bring some cushions out, yoga mats, colouring mats, soft lighting, plants flourishing. We create this sanctuary near a buzz, so we can prioritise our well-being in amongst our busy lives, and that's our hope with the well. So how we got here? Well, 12 years ago or so, I was actually sitting, we'd handed in my last assignment at uni with my friends, and then we went to the cemetery, kind of looked out over the city, and we're like, great, let's look at our job prospects. Opened up. There's absolutely none because we've got a theatre degree. So what are we going to do now? And then we were like, well, who in the city is making devised physical theatre that we could join? And of course, someone from the grave was like, devised theatre, what is that? Realism is the way. No, we were like, no, there was no one in the city who was making theatre that really sung for us. So we were like, well, we're going to have to make it ourselves. So I think from the beginning we've always known that we're going to have to carve this path if we want to follow what we want. And so we just did that. We just formed a production company. We called it Powder Cake Productions, mainly because we were eating cake at the time. And we were like, let's put a show in the Fringe and let's just start, let's just do something. And in 3.5 years, we kind of gathered this big community of people who wanted to be in our shows and wanted to work towards a shared show and way of working. And for us, it wasn't really about the show, it was about the process. So getting people in the door, and it was quite magic what would happen. People would show up every week to be in these shows after their full-time jobs, volunteering their time knowing it wouldn't be paid. We couldn't really pinpoint at the time what it was. We just called it the magic sauce. We were like, it's just the magic sauce that brings people back every single time. Over 3.5 years, we made about 14 shows, which was ridiculous. And I think about movement, I think about momentum, and that was really a time in those 3 years around just keeping the momentum. We started the next show before the next one finished, and we just kept going like this. And it got to the point where a friend of ours said, I'm going to quit my job and work for you. And we were like, don't, because we don't pay ourselves, and yeah, it's all a facade. But that spurred us into thinking, how can we actually make the arts industry, making theatre, how can we make it financially viable where we can actually pay ourselves a salary, and we can continue to work in this way that's really meaningful, feels really connected, and yeah, what we want to do. Interestingly, we then found this accelerator program through Inspiring Stories. We got accepted into it. It's like a 9-week design thinking course where you can kind of understand the why of what you're doing for your business, It was the first time that we'd ever been able to work full-time on something, and we got to walk to the train station, so it was a real contrast from my kitchen leaking in a condemned flat on Roxburgh Street. So we really felt like big kids, we could take it seriously. And then it was in that program where, when we really dived into what the magic sauce was, we realised that meaning, connection, belonging, connecting over shared purpose and connecting over values, that's what brings people back. Having a sense of meaning and purpose, and just in a process in which your ideas are valued, and then they get put into the show, and then you see them realised on stage, and then you have an audience clapping. And someone also said to us, if you're going to make any money, you're going to have to go corporate, which made us feel physically ill. And was like, we don't want to do that. We want just everyday people to be working with us and to work with everyday people. And then had this realisation that actually in corporate culture there are everyday people. It's just people seeking meaning, it's people seeking connection, it's people seeking belonging. So of course we can have impact there too, and we can work in that way. It was within the program that CoLiberate started to emerge, and it was really because of just sensing into our own experience of being in the program. And it was one morning we were walking to a course along the train, we'd walk along the waterfront, and one of my co-founders and friends just stopped and was like, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot go. I cannot work in this way. It feels so hard and fast. It feels so big. I feel like we're on the brink of something. I don't know if it's going to work. It feels like a real compromise. I'm getting more into financial debt, like all of these things. I'm feeling really anxious. And it was the first time that she'd ever shared how she was feeling. It was the first time we'd all ever shared how we were feeling about working together. And we'd worked together for nearly 4 years at this point. And I knew it was quite serious. I didn't know what to do. I'd never had anyone tell me that they'd felt anxious before. So I was a bit like, okay, what do we do? But I knew that it was serious, and I knew that in that moment she needed a friend, and needed me to not be like, it'll be fine. She needed me to be like, what's going on? And so we kind of looked at our options, and we were like, well, we either quit because it's hard and we don't know where it's going and it's risky, and they're making us work too hard than we can do, or and we go home and we go back to our lives, and then we probably go back to the cemetery and be like, what do we do? Or we keep going and we work together and we go hard and then we go home. And we were like, those options suck. Why do we have to go hard or go home? Like, where is the world where we can actually tend to ourselves and tend to our darkness and tend to our anxieties and well-being first before we have to do the work? And then we were like, that option sounds awesome. How do we do that? And then we were like, let's just do it, as we've always done. Let's just do it. So that's where we started to, every morning we would check in with one another. And we'd ask each other how we're feeling. And then based on the information of the feelings, we would adapt to what our day would look like. So sometimes she would go home and look after herself. Sometimes I would go home and look after myself. She'd be like, I'm feeling brave today. We'd be like, great, you meet with that person. I'll do the admin behind the scenes. And it was awesome to be able to start talking in a way that's around our needs and around our well-being, before having to meet the demands of the job. And we've never looked back from that. And that was really one of the things that started to inform our why is, how do we live in a world that does not value emotional health or emotional needs or anything? It was a real challenge in the workshop. I remember once it got quite overwhelming, and she stepped outside and was having a panic attack, and went outside to support her. And the guy from the course runs in, and he's like, you've got to get in there, you've got to do your pitch now. I was like, no, we don't. And he's like, yeah, but this woman's flown all the way from Palmerston North. It's like, yeah, I'm sure she could fly again from Palmerston North. It was like, there's actually nothing more important right now than, we're not in a state to go and perform right now. So it felt like really pushing up against stuff. And that's been our journey this whole time as well. It's like carving our own path, but also like pushing up against these boulders that come through. And that's easier with people around us, with a community around us. Anyway, I'm getting to where CoLiberate started, I swear. It was then when we were talking a bit about needs and, yeah, this community that we'd built around theatre making, that we were like, what do you do when you feel bad? You don't want to be at work, but you don't want to be at home alone. Like, where do we go? Where are the spaces that we can go and be, and just be ourselves and not have to explain? Yeah, but there are resources or things that we can engage with and like do just to be. And I was like, what about the gym? And she was like, yeah, I could go to the gym, but it feels like hard work. It feels like me working my body, and it feels like I can't just go to the gym and lie down in between all the sweaty people who were like really working out. Like, yeah, but you know, something, yeah, the library, it's like, no, you can't really cry in the library, can you? Like, yeah, you can't really express yourself, so where does that space exist? So that's when we were like, oh, you kind of need a mental health gym. And that's when we started to paint this picture of what it could be like to show up to a place, be treated with unconditional positive regard. Hello, you're welcome however you are, not have to share how you are, just to be how you are. It's like things to do, things to colour, things to engage with, things that help us with our well-being. And so we were like, great. Who's doing that in the city? No one? Great. Let's do it. So that's, yeah, we started to figure out ways in which we could bring it to life. Fortunately, Urban Dream Brokerage got us an old law office just up the road here and said you can have it for 5 weeks for free to test your little project. Like, thank you, a little project. And we were like, great. So we launched this program of wellbeing sessions, which were an hour long, and they were based around, Jodie had done some mindfulness training, so we'd had this mindfulness with clay. We had lots of movement-based things that came from our theatre making rehearsal processes. There was wellness one-ings where we would talk about wellness themes of the week, reflective writing, all sorts. We just put it all out on the table, and then we were like, let's go for it. After 5 weeks, the landlord said we can just be on a rolling lease, so just keep going. So we scaled back a bit, made a more sustainable program, and then suddenly the community just built up around that. And we had that space for 18 months, which was ridiculous because we didn't expect to have that for so long. But in that 18 months, yeah, the magic created. We just had people coming back every single week. And there was just not really any other space in the city where people could just arrive and be and attend to themselves, connect with other people, and then leave, and always with a hot pot, like a hot cup of tea. So it was awesome. After 18 months, when the lease came to a close, we put it into a chrysalis and was like, let's look at this and let's launch it in a really big way. And in the meantime, when we put it into a chrysalis, we realised that there was a lot of people coming into the space who were in distress, who were in need. They trusted the space as a trusted space to be. And we were like, actually, we need to know how to best support people who come into the space. We need to know what to do and what to say, and we need to equip ourselves with the skills. And we were like, we need like a first aid, but for mental health. So we started getting on Google, and we were like, it doesn't exist anywhere in New Zealand, only in the States. The First Lady of the States were doing it. We tried to get on the phone to her. She didn't pick up, which was unfortunate. So we were like, let's create something, or let's start to research that. There was one, the District Health Board in Counties Manukau were doing Mental Health First Aid New Zealand, but just in that community. So we contacted them, and then they were like, funny enough, you're the 12th person to contact us. We're going to do the train the trainer. Do you want to be involved? So we're like, yep. We had to borrow $3,000 from somewhere to send someone up to train, and then we brought that license back to Wellington. And then with the CoLiberate name, we launched that Mental Health First Aid New Zealand, and put a lot of our theatre skills into the course, because we inherited a 300 slide program, which was not great. Like, it's not a great experience to learn how to do something in slides. So we, did a bit of work to inject some practice opportunities into it, which was a bit naughty. We weren't allowed to, but we just kind of skirted around the edges and did it anyway. And then we launched that, and then suddenly it became national very quickly because there was no one else doing it. There was a lot of organisations who were like, we need these skills too, and realising just how common it is for all of us to know what to do and to say in these situations. So that started that. There was the chrysalis. And we both just started building and growing, and our team grew and our hearts grew, and we paid ourselves a salary. And 8 years later, here I am. The chrysalis kind of formed, it became the butterfly, which is the well. It's taken a lot of that essence of when the gym was down there. And yeah, it's magic. It's magic. It's magic the way it just pops out and pops away. And I think there's a lot of tension around professionalism, corporate culture, and attending to ourselves. And I think there's a big movement at the moment where people are like, we need to tend to ourselves, but I also need to go to work, and I can't balance those things. So our hope is that we start to begin to balance those things, and it takes us to choose that. Like, we need to make that choice for ourselves, and ask for what we need, and ask the systems for what we need. And the more we do that, the more other people do that, and then the more the systems change. So that's what we're about, and that's what the well is starting to do. Yeah. I think movement is not just in moving our bodies. Movement is big movements. And yeah, I feel really proud to be a part of a big movement. A big movement that's out of my control now. Like, the amount of people I see arriving to the well each week, I'm like, that's so beautiful. That's them. That's them choosing to come. That wasn't me. It makes my heart sing. And I actually just want to invite you now to turn to the same person next to you who you checked in with at the beginning, and just check in again. How are you feeling now? How are you feeling after listening? Are the words different from when you started? And just bring you back to the room. Just wrap up your conversation. How many of you feel different or have different words from the beginning to now? Yeah. I like to take notice about how our moods move throughout every single moment that we have in the day, and checking in with ourselves as a way to clock that. And that's what moving means to me. That's what movement really means to me, is how we move, not just our bodies, but our moods, and start to value that and prioritize that, and embrace it and love it, because it's a part of us. Thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to my kōrero. Anyone is welcome to come to the well. If you work at 257, you have a free membership to come along. There are sessions every single week. Usually in the lunch hour, there's one after work on a Monday, and then we have a luscious retreat session on a Sunday once a month, where you can take a bit more time to engage in your well-being. But yeah, please come along. I think on the flyer there might be a promo code, but yeah, Laura's giving me the thumbs up. Laura is the kaitiaki of the well, or runs the well. And yeah, come along and give it a go, and yeah, awesome. Invitation for any questions or any sharings or any thoughts, or yeah, if you want, no pressure. Yeah, hello Faye.
Do you have, or have you ever thought about taking this beyond Planning?
Yeah, multiple times, and I think there's, always felt held back by knowing that there's a lot of work to do in Wellington. Like, there's a lot of people in Wellington. In our other wing of the butterfly, we call it now, the skills training, and we do a lot of work outside of Wellington. So, building peer support networks based on those foundational skill sets and helping people be better friends to each other. So that happens a lot outside of here. But yeah, I think the well's just started. It's 2 years old. We launched in the middle of the pandemic, just before the second lockdown. So it's maybe good timing, maybe poor timing, we didn't know, but we just took a risk. So I think from then it's starting to re-emerge itself, and we'll grow more. Up and out.
I have a question. I feel like you have your finger on the pulse of like what's going on in Wellington. Are you seeing any like mental health trends or shared experiences, or things that people, they might feel like they're alone and going through, but they're not. You know what I mean? Like common threads.
Yeah. Yeah. Been talking to a lot of people on the phones over the last year around what they're seeing in their workplaces. And I think there's a lot of coming up against, I guess, the pandemic, on the back of that, I think the feeling of uncertainty has started to subside a little bit, but there's still a lot of kind of work-life boundaries that were confused at that time because of having to work from home. So a lot of people were starting to reprioritise their life priorities and try and balance that against actually needing to live and needing to work to live. A lot of people tend to have a lot of big life stuff that comes that you can't just leave at the door and then go to work and then pick it up on the way out. And trying to work, finding other people in your workplace who can actually take a moment to care about those things going on for you, which actually lifts shame. It helps us feel in connection with someone and actually helps us get our work done better. So, I think, I'm seeing a lot of confusion around how to balance those things. And also generally just a lot of our rangatahi coming through are like, it's really important. And then there's a lot of our older people who are only just realising that it exists. So there's this real clash in the middle of fighting for what the systems that we need to serve our mental health needs. And a lot of people being like, what? Oh gosh. So
It's new and strange for them.
oh yeah, and then being like, oh gosh, I did feel like that once. That makes sense. Yeah. And not really having a language for it now. Rangatahi having a big language for it now. Like it's, even though emotional health literacy is not on the curriculum, there's just so much dialogue in Instagram and in our world that they're bringing into these spaces. So, yeah.
Gen Z, so blessed.
Blessed. I love Gen Z. Yeah. But I think all of our individual experiences of the world are unique, and we're just not alone in any of them. And even, I think there's this one tendency to validate people's experience by saying, I know exactly how you feel. And it's like, well, we don't know exactly how someone feels at all times. So saying, yeah, thank you for sharing, and I hear you, completely slices the sense of isolation. You feel like you're with someone. So, yeah. Your feelings are valid.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was incredible. Can we just give it up to cut?
Thank you.
And yes, everyone enjoy your days and take care of yourselves and do your regular check-ins.
Yeah.
And if you know, I think everyone probably knows Sarah to an extent, so.
Mind you, some unfamiliar faces in the room, so do come and say hello and say hi. Yeah, happy to chat.
Cool. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.